Foxboro Rush. What a rush. Travis Thomas here with my man, George Balekji. And you know what, George? On this show, we talk all things Patriots, all things NFL, and I, for one, sir, am fired up for the NFL release tonight, baby. Let's go.
You know, maybe it's a hot call here, hot take. I don't care for the schedule releases. Just put it out. Just I want one graphic on social media laying out the 17 games. I know when the bye is. I know when the primetime games. I don't need this stupid rollout over the course of 4 days, and then they're going to make us sit around a TV. It's going to take 2 hours on a Wednesday night. Like, dude, I don't care. Just roll it out and put it out there. There's no way it actually generates this viewership. It's the ego of the NFL with this. That's my take.
Who peed in your football cereal?
Dude,
what's your problem?
I'm all about finding out who they're playing and when. Like, trust me. But just put it out there.
You just want it out.
I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not. I don't care.
Yes, you are.
No,
yes,
Twitter will get it done for me.
I will guarantee you'll watch it.
I will do other things.
Because I'm going to be sitting right next to you watching
There are other things going on. NBA, NHL playoffs, right?
Oh.
WNBA season's here. Hey,
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark, what up?
We acknowledge all those things on Boston Has Entered the Chat and Hold My Banner and all the wonderful shows we do here at Nessa, George. But here on Foxboro Rush, we talk football, baby. What you mean you don't want the NFL release show?
I will literally be outside touching grass instead of watching the NFL roll out a schedule. I'm not doing that. Enough, Roger Goodell.
Well, listen, everything the NFL does is pretty much a production now, George.
Yeah.
You remember when the draft used to just be a bunch of fat guys sitting around on a rotary phone making picks? Those days are gone. It's a concert now, and it feels like a music festival. They've done the same thing with the schedule release show. I don't have a problem with it. But, hey, to your point, most of these games are leaked before. We already kind of know. So I get it. I get it. Just put it all out at once. All right, let's start here. So it's official, as we know. Patriots Executive Vice President of Player Personnel, always a mouthful, de facto GM, right? Eliot Wolf got the job. But now reports are starting to come out here. We know, per the NFL's Rooney rule, teams are required to interview at least 2 minority candidates for these positions, right? Well, so we know they've interviewed a few for that position, but in the end, an article from Albert Breer said this, George, quote, candidates weren't brought to the team headquarters and didn't meet anyone other than the Crafts. So essentially, they were just took them out to dinner somewhere in Boston. I'm sure it was a wonderful dinner, but it was basically what you and I suspected, checking a couple boxes. Okay, let's give Eliot Wolf the gig. So no shock to us. We saw this coming. But I guess now, George, we're getting confirmation of what we thought, that this Rooney rule thing for a lot of these teams. I want to be easy on the Patriots specifically because I want to acknowledge how important it is that they do have the first black head coach in franchise history. So I do appreciate that, and I've spoken about that. But all of these teams, I'm not letting the Patriots off the hook, but I'm putting everyone on the hook of they bring in these minority candidates to literally just check a box when they know damn well they have no interest in hiring them. And this is what, if you remember, Brian Flores was complaining about, right? That it's a charade to bring us in and to interview us when you're not going to give us the opportunity, and you know that going in. So it's pretty much what we thought, George. This is confirmation.
Yeah, it was, as you put it, talking about it before, it's a dog and pony show. Just, hey, we brought people in. We opened it up. It was just, to me, though, an odd start-to-finish process of finding who your de facto GM is. And after all this, you still don't have a general manager. Like, why are you holding out on that title?
Right.
Is it a pay thing, Robert Kraft? Is it you being cheap? I don't know. Now, Eliot Wolf was the right hire to lead this team in that front office. A, because he just drafted a team, but the past issues of your drafting and personnel decisions wasn't because of Eliot Wolf. It was because of Bill Belichick.
That's right.
And him walking all over guys like Matt Groh, who was the head of personnel when Belichick was still the general manager and head coach. Now, you touched on it. It's not like the Crafts are going around and saying, you know, they don't believe in the Rooney Rule, they're minorities, because obviously they have Gerard Mayo, a black head coach. But the way they went about this whole offseason, I've said it before, the Crafts and the Patriots did the laziest coaching and GM search I've ever seen. They baked into Gerard Mayo's contract before last season began. Because remember, he was getting head coaching interviews elsewhere around the NFL. And for him to stay without getting the DC title was, that raised some eyebrows. But they baked it in. You will be the successor to Bill Belichick once he's gone. They expected it to be 2 or 3 years down the road, not immediate 1 year after putting that. Then with this GM search, same thing. They don't go and actually interview any serious candidates. Brendan Hunt, the Eagles scouting director, good for him because he's a low man on the totem pole in that front office, and that's good experience for him to at least go through, talk with an NFL owner, put his name and his face in front of an owner. So if something opens up, they remember Brandon Hunt of the Eagles. We interviewed him, got to know him. He stuck out to me. I want to hire him. Then Samir Suleiman, who used to be with the Carolina Panthers as ex-cap chief for them. I mean, that's a guy that does the numbers, knows how about cap management, meeting the bottom line, but also staying within budget. That's everything Robert Kraft was, but again, not a serious candidate. What they did with all this was just say, Eliot, we're not giving you the title for whatever reason. It just doesn't make sense. Do this search in January, right after you fire Bill Belichick. And if you do this search the right way, and you actually go out and interview a Jason Peters who learned from the 49ers before becoming the head guy at the Commanders, who was in your building, talk to him. Interview an Alec Hellaby from the Philadelphia Eagles, who's the number 2 behind Howie in Philadelphia. And look at how they draft and how they do free agency and how they consistently be a contender. The reason you bring these guys in is because you learned from them. You do your own intel on these interviews while they're doing their intel by getting interviewed by you.
Sure.
You go and learn from other teams and other people how it's done. You haven't done a head coach search or general manager search in 25 years. You might have to do it again in 3 years if Drake May doesn't work.
That's right.
But you didn't do it and you didn't learn anything. So that's where, again, the Patriots are just lazy. But it's the kumbaya that Robert Kraft feeds to everybody, an elegant solution of Belichick and us parting ways. You fired him. Just say it. It's fine, Robert. It's fine, Jonathan. So that's where this was the right hire made, but the process didn't make sense at all. And this could have been done 2 weeks after the end of the season, where you interview serious candidates. You don't make a mockery of the minority candidates you interview. Actually take them serious. Actually bring them in. Actually go through the process yourself, and your people learn. And if you still come to the end point of Eliot Wolf, fine, because he's the right man for the job.
Sure.
But you gain something in the process. So that's why with all this, I just hate how the Patriots did it. It is so lazy, and it is so wrong the process they went about it. And they're not a better team for it. They got a good head coach. We'll see. First-time head coach. First-time head of personnel. De facto GM and Eliot Wolf. But they could have done so much more for themselves. Right, hire an Eliot Wolf. But this process and the logic behind it doesn't make sense at all. I don't think it'll ever make sense, but it's Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft trying to be the smartest guys in the room. Like, you don't have to be the smartest guy. Just make the right hire and do the right process. That's all anyone's asking for.
I can sense your frustration, but I think your frustration is sort of misdirected. I pushed back with the lazy narrative with you because I said both of us agree that Eliot Wolf earned the job, and they wanted clearly to hire within. I don't necessarily have a problem with Eliot Wolf being the hire. I don't really personally think it was lazy for that to be the outcome. The method in which they got there as it pertains to the Rooney Rule is really what both of us have the issue with. It's not so much, at least speaking for myself, it's not so much that the Patriots just decided Eliot Wolf's our guy and they didn't do thorough interviews of other people. I mean, hell, if you decide that's your guy, that's why they didn't do thorough interviews of other people. They knew they already had their man. It was his job to lose. He didn't lose it, so he got the gig. The issue both of us have, and I know, is the Rooney Rule is in place for the right reasons. The issue is the accountability of the Rooney Rule. These teams, there's no one to hold them accountable. There's no one to say, listen, you can't just parade minority candidates in here without giving them a fair opportunity to land the gig within your organization. That's not happening. I've been in interviews personally where I've gone in and interviewed for a job that I was not qualified for, and the hiring people say, you know what, you're not qualified for this job, but we really like you. You have talent. We see on your resume you have this, this, and this in terms of experience. We're going to put you in this position. So I ended up walking out of there with a job, just not the one I applied for. If this were happening, I bring this up because if this were happening in some of these NFL gigs, then I don't think there would be as big of an issue. The issue is when you bring in minority candidates, they have zero shot at the job, and you're not even interested in bringing them into your organization in some other capacity where maybe they can get their foot in the door and be more qualified for a position. A lot of times, a lot of these minority candidates are qualified for a position, overqualified for a position, and you're still just bringing them in to BS them to check a box. All of these examples, George, lead back to one word, and it's accountability. Someone, the NFL, needs to hold these clubs accountable. It can't just be enough to say you have to interview 2, check, and that's it. It's just not enough. Again, I'm a little sensitive to the Patriots situation because I think they have, for the most part, in the post-Belichick era, albeit short, have done things the right way. But big picture, this Rooney Rule stuff, it's all good on the surface, but there needs to be accountability to hold teams to the standard, and it's just not happening.
It's my gripe is it's not Eliot Wolf getting the job because I think he's the right hire. And Gerard Mayo, I'm fine with that. If you believe in him, but you still open the doors, you gain stuff from interviewing serious candidates.
Right.
And if they bring in serious minority candidates from the front offices of the Detroit Lions, the Dallas Cowboys, some of the better drafting teams in the NFL, who are led by minorities that are their head of personnel. So go to their personnel tree and see who's their right-hand person and interview them. My issue is that the Patriots could have gained a lot from an actual serious GM and coaching search, and they didn't do any of that. So that's where it goes into. And you're 1,000% right, Trav. The Rooney Rule is made a mockery of in the NFL every year. We saw it happen with Brian Flores when, remember, the wrong Brian got a text from Bill Belichick.
Yep.
Meant to text Brian Dable.
Right.
Congrats on getting the job. When Brian Flores was still in the interview process for the New York Giants and he was confused. It was the same thing here. You bring in Brendan Hunt, and good for him to get this interview and get that experience. It'll help him when someone actually takes him serious and he's been through the ringer of the interview process.
Yeah.
So good for Brendan Hunt.
Yeah.
Samir Suleiman, if he wants to get back into a front office, sure, go ahead. We'll see what happens with him. You get that experience. But it's just the Patriots not taking it serious and not doing actual football work.
Yeah.
And this all could have been done by the end of mid-January to end of January. Everything could have been done. Eliot Wolf could have had this title. And guess what? Probably would have done the same in free agency and in the draft. So that's where it goes. You had him, you're going to draft the team, then we'll reassess from that point on. It just doesn't make sense. And there's you could zig when everyone's zagging. That's fine. You could do stuff a little differently. But I just don't get it why they did it this way. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And George, we keep bringing up Brian Flores, but there's countless examples. One that comes to top of mind recent is Raheem Morris. How long did it take that guy to get a second chance at a head coaching gig? Where we see other situations where that's not the case. There's retreads all the time. But when it comes to minority coaches, that is not the case. And Raheem Morris was paraded around, George, with this Rooney Rule for several gigs over the years. He finally got his chance in Atlanta, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. But everyone will acknowledge he should have got another head coaching opportunity way sooner than he did. But again, checking boxes on Rooney. Well, we brought in Raheem Morris. I mean, where's the accountability? That's where I'm at with it.
It's also what they did. This was basically a one-day search. They met with Brendan Hunt.
Pretty much.
At one point of the day. Samir Suleiman the next. In person. Never brought them to Foxboro, the headquarters.
Took them out to dinner.
Never met with anyone else. That's literally checking the box and just being lazy. But everything I'm being critical. I do like the Eliot Wolf hire.
Yes.
We like how he drafted. There's picks I don't love, but the way he handled free agency wasn't the best either. But the draft, and you start from there. This is going to be a multi-year rebuild. I do like that Eliot Wolf has experience from outside the building. You didn't go with Matt Groh, who's just a nepotism play by Bill Belichick, doing a favor for Al Groh, Matt's dad. Eliot Wolf was a finalist for the Chicago and Minnesota jobs for those front offices. Mm-hmm. When he was with Green Bay, he was a number 2 behind Brian Gutekunst. And look at how the Packers have drafted. Random years. Picks that come to mind for me: Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, Elgin Jenkins, Jordan Love, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Zach Tom, Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, Kenny Clark. Those guys are Pro Bowl level to all pro level players. And Jair Alexander, Rashawn Gary, Jordan Love, I'm talking ceilings here. Kenny Clark, those guys can be all pro. Then he's been there too when they drafted Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, Randall Cobb, James Jones, a 3rd round pick. All those guys, 2nd or 3rd rounds. He just took a 2nd and 4th round receiver So he's been there and knows. And he learned from his dad, Ron Wolf, of course. He's been around front offices since he was 14. I like Eliot Wolf getting this promotion. But again, why not general manager? Like, what's the logic here? Give him the damn title. Robert Kraft, what are you doing? But I think it was good. And you point out, in Albert Breer's report, he said Wolf came in, broke down walls in which had been very siloed off operation, communicated a very clear process and strategy, and set of expectations, all while keeping some elements of the old Belichick way. Keywords in this article: collaborative, capable, level-headed.
There it is.
So that is something where Robert Kraft likes Eliot Wolf because that keyword, siloed off. Belichick did his thing.
Yeah.
The Krafts probably never knew.
Right. Leave me alone. Let me do the football stuff.
And then that's what happens when he trades back and he takes a guard 29th overall in the first round. So
that's right.
They knew what Eliot Wolf was planning to do. Eliot Wolf knew what they wanted to do. That leads you to Drake May at number 3. Get a receiver, get a tackle, get a receiver. Get a playmaker in Jaheim Bell late in the draft too. So that makes sense why Eliot Wolf got this promotion. I just still don't understand the non-GM.
Gut feel. Are we talking about a Patriots executive vice president of player personnel search in 4 years? Or do you think Eliot Wolf's here for the long term? I think he's here for the long term because I believe he hitched his wagon to Drake May, and I believe Drake May is going to work. And let's listen, in this league, if you get the quarterback right, and all of us are optimistic, cautiously optimistic that Gerard Mayo's right. Mm-hmm. So you get the head coach and the quarterback hire right. In this league, you win games. If you win games, you keep your job. I think Eliot Wolf is here 4 years from now. Do you?
Yeah. If I'm going to project that Drake May works and they are able to develop him, and I believe in how they drafted. Right. I like the receivers they got around him. This is a thing where Gerard Mayo said it himself. My legacy is tied to Drake May.
That's right.
Eliot Wolf's legacy is tied to Drake May. The one thing I'll give him, I mean, look at the LA Chargers. The quarterback will outlast the head coach and the GM, and Tom Telesco, and of course their head coach that they just fired as well. So, dude, you're asking me yes or no? I'll say no. I'll project Drake May works out.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long rebuild, but by year 3, if they're back in the playoffs, winning playoff games, being a serious team, then Gerard Mayo and Eliot Wolf are going to be here to stay.
Oh, they're going to get fat contract extensions is what they're going to get. Now, there's a lot of talk about Drake May between you and I, but we're not the only ones, my friend. Our old buddy Plaxico Burress says the Patriots regret drafting Drake May already, Plaxico. Okay. He says it's based these comments I'm about to read you on Gerard Mayo's comments that Drake May has a lot of work to do. So, of course, Plaxico goes on and says, quote, that doesn't sound good to me. If I'm Gerard Mayo and the fans of New England Patriots, basically what you're saying is we might have drafted the wrong guy. We're just going to paint this picture right now. He may not be as good as we thought he was coming out. George, here's my issue with this, and it's not just Plaxico, because obviously we could pick on him for a bunch of reasons, and I'm not interested in doing that. I'm going to put Plex in the box with all of the people who are saying the same thing, and I don't get it. Drake May, oh, you may have drafted the wrong guy. Look at that video. He looks raw. He looks like he needs some work. Yeah, duh. That's why Gerard Mayo said it. But we knew that on draft night.
Exactly.
We knew that in the pre-draft process. Hell, we knew that watching games at UNC, Chapel Hill with this kid. He is raw. You know who else was? Josh Allen at Wyoming. I mean, there's a ton of people.
Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love,
at Texas
both had
Tech.
a lot of work
Jordan
to
Love,
do.
all these guys were raw.
Yeah.
I mean, they're college kids. Now, some are more polished and refined than others.
Lamar Jackson.
Caleb Williams is ready to play today. That doesn't necessarily mean Drake May is.
Yeah.
A lot of what you're drafting is projecting into the future. Now, the Patriots were smart as hell to bring in Jacoby Brissett, a veteran who doesn't get hurt, solid guy, consummate pro. If you're developing a young quarterback, that is the perfect guy to have, the quintessential teacher, mentor in Jacoby Brissett. So the Patriots not only knew Drake May was raw, but they put plans and practices in place to help bring this kid on. I just don't understand this sort of gotcha that we're seeing in the media of these different national broadcasters saying, former players and geniuses, so-called geniuses, right, and analysts saying, oh, man, you seen the video? That windup looks a little slow. Oh, it's footwork. It's choppy. No Shaq, Sherlock. I mean, it's going to take time to develop this kid. Everyone knew that. But the ceiling The ceiling, in the words of Michael Jordan, the ceiling is the roof. That's what you bought the kid in for.
What I love too, and I'm going to take Plaxico Burress out of this because I didn't even know he was doing media. So this was news to me.
Yeah.
Hey, that was Plaxico Burress saying this. I'm like, Plaxico's doing media now? I don't know. Maybe this was like Plaxico's third day on the job. I'm being dead serious right now because I did not know he was doing media. But if he is, that guy deserves better coaching. Hey, yeah, come out, have a take on Drake May, but be smarter than that. Like anyone that knows the NFL knows, like you said, a rookie quarterback, any rookie, point blank period, first round pick, third overall pick, seventh round pick, has a lot of work to do. Gerard Mayo coming out and saying that he has a lot to work on, it's tempering expectations. He said when they drafted him, Drake May has to earn his job.
That's right.
He's not the starter right now. I'm not going to call him QB1. If Gerard Mayo came out and said, yeah, Drake May, he's got some work to do, but man, that arm looks good. You know what's going to happen here in New England? Start Drake May week 1. People pounding the table.
That's right.
Instead, by him coming out and doing this in Gerard Mayo, he's taking the pressure off Drake. He's saying this to him behind closed doors. This is what you have to work on. Alex Van Pelt is telling him. Gerard's laying out the timeline and going, look, we don't need you to be the Drake May we drafted week 1. We don't need you to be a franchise quarterback week 1. We want you to be good every day and get better and better day by day. And if you are that guy by week 1, if you're that guy by week 8, great. You know what? Look at this plan. And maybe they're being candid with them. We have to do this in year 1, this in year 2. We have these contracts to take care of. Year 3 is when we hit the ground running. And year 3 is when you're going to have a full season under your belt already. And that's when you really get going. That's what he's saying to Drake May. So what he's saying to us in public, he's saying the same thing to him. For Plaxico to come out and say this, I just feel bad that he's the punching bag and all this, but that's just a guy I think is new at the job. That's what it says to me. If he's been doing it for a minute, then man, Plax, got to get better. But it's no duh. Jacoby Brissett, 49 starts in the NFL under his belt. Drake May, obviously 0. Bo Nix, in college, 60-plus games played. Jaden Daniels, 55. Michael Penix, 49. Caleb Williams, 37 games. J.J. McCarthy, 40 games. Only 2 seasons as a starter. Drake May, 30 games played. Those are the 6 guys taken in the first round. Drake May has the least amount of games played in the NFL. Every rookie has something to work on and get better at.
Right.
Drake May's raw. Coming out of college, I said it. This guy can take a year. He's going to have to develop. But I love that the Patriots got Jacoby Brissett because I don't want to see Drake May in year 1, and that's fine. So Plax to come out and say this, he may not be as good as we thought he was. It doesn't sound good to me if I'm Gerard Mayo, fans of New England. He's saying there's smoke and fire. He's saying there's a fire where there isn't even smoke.
Sure.
They know the expectations inside that building, and the people in New England, the smart football fans, know the expectations under center. Drake May isn't a 2024 Band-Aid. He's a fix in 2025, 2026, and years from then. And I love what you pointed out. I didn't even go there in my head. The Josh Allens looked terrible his rookie
how
year.
many guys can we name?
But you trusted him to learn on the fly. Mahomes sat here.
Yes.
You got to start in there. He played, threw for a ton of yards, but still was off with his accuracy.
Yeah.
Jordan Love looked terrible. He sat more than one season.
How raw was Jalen Hurts coming out?
Exactly. Jalen Hurts sat a year. Lamar Jackson sat.
Right.
Justin Herbert started right away, but he's still improving with his game.
Right.
These great quarterbacks in the league right now, the guys that are top 10, they sat and they learned. Gerard Mayo is just the first coach to come out and say he has a lot to work on. And maybe Gerard Mayo is going to learn a lesson. Like, now I get it why Bill was such a prick.
Yeah.
Because you say stuff like this and you have morons like Plaxico Burress saying that, we messed up and Drake sucks. But I think Gerard, he didn't learn it from Burning Cash. He didn't learn it from everything he's been saying. I don't think he's going to learn it from here. I do
he's
like having transparent, candid football coach.
Yeah,
exactly.
he's transparent. He actually talks to you. I do respect that. It's going to take some getting used to for what we are used to or what we were used to around here. But I respect that about Gerard Mayo, that he's going to keep it real with you and he's going to open up the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. Even though you did call him a moron, I think you're kind of taking it easy on Plaxico Burress when you say he needs some broadcasting coaching, because I don't believe that. Look, you're a former player.
Yeah.
Like, give us nuance. That's what you're there for, bro.
Yeah.
Like, if we just want talking heads who think they know everything, you tune in to me and George. But you played the game. So, yes, we want your opinion on things, but we need that nuance of playing the game, bro. So don't just come out and say, based on what Gerard Mayo said and looking at this grainy-ass video, it looks like Drake May doesn't look very good. Maybe they made a mistake. I mean, Plex, tell us, hey, my first practice or two with Eli, I knew right away. The ball came out. The footwork was there. The this, the that.
Yeah.
Look at how Drake May holds the ball here. He doesn't do this. Look at the slow windup. Break down. And I understand this was a short clip, and maybe you and I don't know the entire conversation, but I'm willing to bet that Plexico did not go in depth. He doesn't exactly seem like the most in-depth individual I've ever seen. So
I need to watch
I'm thinking he's just going by word of mouth here. And that's not what you're there for, right?
Yeah.
As a former player, and this is, I would say this, I'm in the media, but I would say this as a consumer too, watching these sports shows, you're there to give me that. Give me those stories. Tell me a difference between, Eli and some jag, some just a guy, run-of-the-mill quarterback, and what was the difference that you could see and why Drake May isn't maybe the right choice based on your experience as a player. We didn't get any of that from Plex. We just got a bunch of nonsense.
Benefit of the doubt, I gave Plaxico. He's been doing media stuff since 2014.
Oh, there you go.
So
then he should know better, right?
And it was watching the clip. Like, I watched Plaxico say it. For me, I guess in these instances, I have to have more patience, but I just swipe out of the video the second I hear him done talking.
Yeah.
But you bet it was an echo chamber. Craig Carton's like, yeah! Just like, everyone, shut up. It's like, noted NFL insider, really embedded in the NFL day-to-day, Craig Carton and Plaxico Burress, really in tune and in touch, New England Patriots reporters, Plaxico Burress and Craig Carton, making a comment like that. It's just like, it's just dumb.
So listen, I was just talking about nuance from former players, right? You're going to get it from this guy. Tom Brady makes his first game as a debut broadcaster, play-by-play, Cowboys-Browns, September 8th. Too bad for Tom. He's got to go to Cleveland for his debut at broadcasting.
Yeah.
But, I think he'll be the exact opposite of what we just said. I think Tom could actually maybe bore people because he is such a robot in terms of his work ethic, how he prepared for the game, George, how he played the game, how he processed the game. I think he's going to be maybe too much in depth would be my prediction. We saw this a little bit with Drew Brees. Do you remember Drew Brees on Sunday Night Football? It wasn't long. I think he had a couple seasons. But he was as boring as watching paint dry. Yeah. And I think it's because he went too much in the weeds of breaking down plays, of playing the position. And it was like, okay, but Drew, you we see you on these commercials. We saw you win the Super Bowl holding your kid and having fun. We're not getting that from you as a broadcaster. It was almost like too much technical and not enough personality. And it's tough. It's a tough gig. What we do is tough, George, because, look, you have to give numbers and metrics and statistics and know what you're talking about, but you also have to show some personality too. Yeah. And there is a fine balance. You look at a guy like Tony Romo. People make fun of him because he's oohing and ahhing too much.
Yeah, he's ruining it.
And it's almost maybe too much personality, right? Yeah. So it is. I understand it's a fine balance. I'm certainly not picking on Tom Brady. It's a hard gig. But I wonder if he'll give us enough personality, George. That's my concern. When you're getting paid that kind of cabbage and all those eyeballs are on you.
$37.5 million a year.
Right? All the eyeballs are on you. You are the GOAT as a player. People are going to pick apart your every word. And I almost just think he's going to be too safe. He's going to be too much in the X's and O's and not show us enough personality.
Well, my concern, you say too safe, that's what I think he'll be. Will you be critical of the quarterback on the field? Will you pick apart what he's doing wrong? Like, we want to learn and grow. Will you call out a coach for a bad decision? Because I'll say, the Manicast came out. It's great. Everyone watches it. My favorite part of the Manicast is Peyton and Eli mother effing coaches up and down because of their awful clock management, especially inside 2 minutes. But are you going to get that from Tom Brady? Is he going to call players out on the field for not doing their job, for not playing well, for not executing, for not being smart? And the same thing with the head coaches. And also, I've said it before on this very podcast, you listen to Tom Brady's Let's Go podcast. all he does the whole time is filibuster. Every time he's asked about the game, and he goes, "It's so difficult." And he just knows how to eat up 4 and 5 minutes without saying
answering
anything.
Yeah.
Think back to his press conferences. He didn't have the most dazzling press conferences either.
Yeah.
But if you get the Tom Brady that is sober, that we saw on Netflix at his roast, I think he'll be phenomenal. Because I'll say this. So I have two friends. One actually was the caddy at the golf course in Brookline where Tom Brady lived on, right? And he was lucky enough to be Tom Brady's caddy at certain points. Said he was a complete bro, like coolest guy on earth, would make jokes. You guys are hydrating, right? Give him water. You know, just be one of the guys and hang with them. And they were mind blown that Tom Brady could be such a normal dude.
Yeah.
Again, I have a friend that worked in the NFL and would work with Tom Brady when he had to come in, do a bunch of autograph signings, whatever. And he'd be in a room with him for an hour, nonstop, just Tom Brady by himself signing footballs, whatever, but just being one of the guys. And they both told me they were just amazed at his personality that he had. So if you get that Tom Brady in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt,
right,
calling Cowboys Browns, it doesn't matter what the game is. People will love it and be locked in. But if you get someone that closes themselves off, won't call out what's going wrong on the field or point out what's going great, just be 100% honest with officiating, with quarterback play, with coaching on the sidelines, everything, then it'll suck and he won't do well.
Well, you're going to hate it then because, listen, you brought up the Manning cast. It's appropriate to do what they do on that Manning cast. That's why they started it, right? You're supposed to be on there and give all personality, and then your knowledge of the game is just the icing on the cake. But really, we're there to watch the Mannings and all their guests. And, oh, yeah, there's a game going on. And
the guests are the worst part to me. Like, I hate it when they bring on, like, a random actor, rapper, because they're not talking football.
But we're not talking about our opinions on it. We're talking about why the show was built the way it was, right?
Yeah.
You're there to see Mannings, both Mannings and their guest, in theory. So it's appropriate to break the game down the way they do. I think in Brady's case, he can't do that. He should have did a Brady cast if that's what you want from him. In his case, would you call it filibustering? That's what he's going to do. He will be critical of coaches and quarterbacks, but it's going to be in a way appropriate to a play-by-play guy. It's not, or a color guy. It's not going to be the Manning cast. If we're looking for that as consumers, you just might as well not even watch them.
But I'll say this: the guy he's going to replace in that Fox booth, Greg Olson,
he was fantastic.
And Kevin, they were great.
I loved him.
And Greg wasn't too much in the weeds. You can point out what's going wrong or what's going right without going too into detail. So I think Tom Brady is definitely capable of that.
Yeah.
A guy of his IQ and knowledge. You know he's going to go there in there preparing. I think that's what it comes down to. For Greg Olson, he went in there, prepared a ton. We saw Tony Romo fell off. And what's been his issue? I mean, literally, Fox had to get with him and say, stop playing so much golf. We need you to be ready for these games on Sunday, these primetime games. Because Tony Romo doesn't know what he's looking at. Or that game A passed him by.
Yeah.
But also, when he's looking on the field, you can tell the prep isn't there because he just says whatever. Oh, I don't know, Jim. And steps all over Jim Nance. So you can be that guy, but you can do it the right way. Like you said, it is all about chemistry, knowing when to lay out, knowing when to pull back, when your play-by-play guy needs to talk and the color guy has to hold back. Like Tom Brady could do that because we saw Greg Olson do it.
Hey, by the way, that was a pretty damn good Tony Romo.
I don't know, Jim. That's not a good one.
It's actually good. That's what he does.
He gets like high pitch.
He goes different octaves on you.
I would like to point out though. Kevin Burkhardt from New Jersey went to William Patterson University in Wayne. Greg Olson from my hometown, Wayne, New Jersey.
Come on.
So that was a great booth. You ever ask me? Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson.
You notice here on Foxboro Rush, folks, it always goes back to Jersey, doesn't it? How about this? Jets reportedly attempted to replace Nathaniel Hackett this offseason. I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving, this loser. So apparently they're trying to move on from him. They weren't able to do it. In the last 3 seasons, I'm looking at the numbers here, George, without Rodgers as a starting quarterback for the majority of the seasons, obviously. Hackett's offenses finished 29th in points per game, 32nd when he was with the Broncos, and 31st going back to 2018 with the Jags. I mean, look, here's my question. Neither one of us have to be surprised that reportedly the Jets are trying to move off of the guy and it was a failed attempt. My question is, how do you fail at moving off of the guy? Like, how do you not get that right? If he is this bad and he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And you want to move off of him. What's the problem? You can't move off of him? I don't understand. You won't eat the money? You can't. You don't want to hurt his feelings? You can't find another offensive person? I mean, if this guy is literally worthless, George,
Yeah.
then bring me a young upstart at least, right? Who knows a little bit of offense and can chip in somehow, some way. How do you fail at getting rid of this guy? That's what I want to know. I'm not shocked at all by these reports. I mean, some of me thinks Aaron Rodgers, in between his daily conspiracy theory clips that I see every day, I get a new stinking Aaron Rodgers conspiracy theory on my timeline. I'm like, why does this? I don't look up conspiracy theories. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. Why does this continue to pop up on my timeline? I don't need it in my life. I want to block. Can you block names?
Yes, you
in
can
the algorithm
actually, on Twitter? Yes.
Forget following his account. I don't follow him. Can I block Aaron Rodgers' name?
Yes,
Can you teach me how to do that? Because I'm over it. So I guess maybe between his rants, maybe he said, my boy Nathaniel Hackett stays. I don't know what the hell's going on.
It goes back to his Green Bay days where Rodgers did win 2 MVPs with Nathaniel Hackett as his offensive coordinator. But the guy running the show there was Matt LaFleur.
Right.
Who's one of the best play callers. Head coach.
And you know Rodgers had input.
Yeah. And this report, too, coming out from Connor J. Hughes, going back to the summer, Aaron Rodgers would switch play calls that Nathaniel Hackett had at the line. So, we're talking training camp. So, let me answer this question for you. They didn't get rid of Nathaniel Hackett because I bet you Aaron Rodgers went in and said, you can't do that.
Yes.
You get rid of Hackett and probably said some crazy scenario like, I'm leaving, I'm done, I'm demanding a trade, I'm retiring. You can't fire Nathaniel Hackett. Because Nathaniel Hackett is Aaron Rodgers' boy. The same reason they signed Allen Lazard to $11 million a year.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers loved him. They brought Randall Cobb back. Aaron Rodgers loved him. The same reason they almost went out and got Mercedes Lewis. Aaron Rodgers loved him, right? All these connections. It's because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they try to move on from him. Because they literally wanted to bring someone in, put above him, and have them run the show. But I bet Aaron Rodgers intervened. Like, Nathaniel Hackett's a good OC. You got to give him a chance.
Right.
He didn't have me. Hackett didn't change that offense. Once Rodgers went down 20 seconds into the regular season.
That's right.
To when Zach Wilson took over at quarterback.
Yikes.
And Zach Wilson himself, awful pocket presence.
Yeah.
Couldn't read defenses.
Awful, period.
Decision-making was terrible. He never got better. And the offense sucked. You took Garrett Wilson, who was an offensive rookie of the year, and he was irrelevant as a wide receiver when Hackett came in. It's the same reason the Denver Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett, because it wanted to get Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. That's why the Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator. Remember this, too. They fired Mike LaFleur, Matt's brother, to get Hackett to get Aaron Rodgers.
That's right.
And that's why he's still there. So this guy, just too much power. And for whatever reason, they're giving it to him. And maybe for Aaron Rodgers, why he likes working with Hackett is because that's an offensive coordinator possibly without a backbone, where when he's changing his calls at the line, Hackett doesn't say anything because he lets Rodgers get away with it. And maybe that's why Aaron Rodgers wants him there. He's just all about the vibes. It's why Tim Boyle was a backup quarterback. Again, going back to their Packers days.
Yeah.
Because you know what? He's a good guy and he likes the vibes. Like, Aaron Rodgers is ruining the New York Jets. They've drafted well with their high first-round picks, building that defense together. I still, people are writing up Robert Saleh, and maybe, you know what, maybe he's bad. But I'm not writing him off yet because he didn't get a fair shake because he was not the most or second most powerful guy in that franchise. Mm-hmm. To me, it goes owner, Aaron Rodgers, general manager, and then Robert Saleh. And the fact that Rodgers is making decisions above Saleh's head are ruining this team. So talented. If he's healthy, you have a top 5 quarterback in the league. We'll see him coming off an Achilles. But, man, Rodgers as a GM, he's the worst to ever do the job.
I can't believe you believe in this Jets team. This team
that's a top 3 defense.
They can't even.
But the offense sucks. The offensive line sucked, and they didn't do anything about it. They drafted Will McDonald in the first round. Now, Belichick traded and screwed the Jets over by letting the Steelers move up and take a tackle. That's fine. But still, this is a top 3 defense. Good receiver in Garrett Wilson. Have your opinions on Mike Williams if he can stay healthy. But this is a talented offense. but the play calling is just terrible.
They can't even fire Nathaniel Hackett the right way.
I got nothing to defend there.
Listen, here's what's going to happen. I can look into the future. Ready? Hackett and Rodgers will be gone after this season. You won't have to worry about anything.
That I wouldn't be surprised. I'll be surprised if Hackett makes it through this season, man.
No doubt. All right, Jared Goff got the bag. Not a bag, George. The bag. Lions, 4 years, $212 million with $170 guaranteed. My God, Jared Goff got paid, George.
Good for him, man.
Good for him. I mean, it's a market, bro. You and I have talked about this before. You know, a lot of these quarterbacks we're not in love with, but what are you supposed to do? It's a quarterback league.
Exactly.
If you can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time in this league at quarterback, you're going to get paid. Now, there are levels to getting paid, we understand. But Jared Goff has proven, George, that he's above average. I mean, he's won playoff games. He's been to a Super Bowl. He didn't win it.
Yep.
But, like, he's on the Lions, a perpetual loser, gets them to the playoffs, wins a playoff game. I mean, like, they had to do this. There are some quarterback contracts that I see, and I say, what the hell was such and such thinking?
Yeah.
But this one at least, now I look at the price tag, George, I say, good Lord, he got paid. But at least I understand it. They had to do it. And guess what? It was the right choice for the franchise.
This is a guy in Jared Goff, second most passing yards this last season, fourth in passing touchdowns. And just looking at his numbers the last 2 years when he's been with Ben Johnson and got situated in Detroit, 59 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. That's a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
Right.
You're taking care of the football. The offense is put on your back and you're carrying it. But also, this is the price you pay to have a quarterback. Right. Because the Lions would rather have Jared Goff and overpay. It is an overpay at $53 million a year. Second highest AAV in the NFL. But they'd rather overpay and have Jared Goff than pay to have someone like a Daniel Jones.
Sure.
Who's just a deadbeat, not a starting quarterback, right?
Yes.
And I know Jones had his injuries and all that, but this is a tax you have to pay in the NFL. They would rather have somebody than nobody. And Jared Goff is a good somebody.
Yes.
Can take care of the football. You said it had them on the doorstep of getting into a Super Bowl. If they kick field goals, if they kick 2 field goals, kind of waiver, stop the momentum, maybe they're in the Super Bowl in his second Super Bowl.
That's right.
And maybe they win that,
They're not winning. He's not beating Patrick Mahomes.
But this is a team, especially with that defense.
You don't need to do that.
This is a team where this offseason they've locked up Penei Sewell to make him one of the top paid at his position. Amon-Ra St. Brown and guaranteed money to make him one of the top paid at his position.
Yep.
And they locked up Jared Goff. The 3 most important positions on the offensive side of the ball. Quarterback, tackle to protect him, and receiver. They've drafted so well. Jahmyr Gibbs, right?
Yep.
Get him. Sam Laporta, right? Have him. Good receiving depth, too. Now the defense has to come along, but this is you lock up Jared Goff for the next 4 to 5 years. He's under center. You know what you're getting, and he's been great for them the last 2 years.
That's right.
Yes, he's not the most talented quarterback, but he keeps his hands at 10-2 on the steering wheel.
Yes.
And gets the job done for you. 53 million years, nuts. But you know what this is? You know what it is, man? Jared Goff's not one of the best players in the NFL, right? He's not one of the most talented or athletically gifted. But credit to Jared Goff, because the gods were very lucky to him that they gave him good enough arm talent to be in the NFL.
Strong arm. Yeah.
Instead of good enough speed where he's like, oh, is that guy a slot receiver where he'd be a nobody?
Right.
He just took advantage of the quarterback market and the price you have to pay to have a quarterback.
Yes,
he's lucky.
He did. Yep.
He's lucky he's a quarterback. If he was his talent at a running back or a receiver, he'd be making like $5 million a year.
Absolutely.
He'd be one of the bottom.
That's well said.
Second highest paid quarterback in the NFL, man.
That's a good point. I mean, look, him and Kirk Cousins have shared the same fate in that. Dak Prescott to a certain extent, too.
Play the game.
Although I believe Jared Goff is better, certainly, than Dak. And at this stage of his career, I'd rather have Jared Goff, who's younger than Kirk Cousins, obviously.
Yeah.
But look, bro, this is a 4-year deal, right? Guess what? He's going to get paid again after this deal's over. And it may be from Detroit. It may not. Who cares? He's going to get paid. Hey, check out Boston has entered the chat for all things Boston sports and pop culture. We'll talk about the Celtics looking to close out the Cavs and Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut as well. George, it's always a pleasure, my friend. As you know, And you always let the people know for all of our best content of the day. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. For
Let me plug the hotline real quick.
Go ahead.
617-790-0928.
Call us.
617-790-0928. Call in the hotline. Leave a voicemail. We want you guys to enter the chat.
For G Beezy and TT, we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Later.